In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. Before I introduce our guest, I will do our Black History reflection. Our reflection today is on Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was a force of nature, a woman who refused to be silenced, contained, or defined by limitations of her time. Born into slavery, she rose into her power through courage, conviction, and an unshakable belief of her own voice. Her Ain't I a Woman speech remains one of the most powerful declarations of identity, humanity, and womanhood ever spoken on American soil. Truth challenged systems that, that were never designed to include her, and she did it with a clarity that still echoes today. She fought for abolition, for women's rights, for justice, and for the dignity of every soul who had been told they were less than. Her life reminds us that liberation begins with truth, the truth we speak, the truth we live, and the truth we refuse to compromise. Tonight, as we honor Sojourner Truth, we honor every Black woman who has carried the weight of community, transformation, and generational healing. And we honor our guest, Kisha Woods, whose work embodies the same spirit of empowerment, authenticity, and unapologetic evolution. Now, to introduce our guests. Welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White, where we elevate voices, honor truth, and explore the stories that shape our culture and our future. Tonight, we are joined by a woman who is not just building businesses, she's building people. A woman who is not just shifting mindsets, she is shifting generations. A woman who stands boldly in her authenticity and invites others to do the same. Keisha Woods is a transformational force as a founder and CEO of Upgraded Mindsets. She has created a movement rooted in clarity, confidence, and intentional evolution. She is a life and business coach, an award winning entrepreneur, a speaker, a two-time podcast host, a community builder, and a champion for women rewriting their stories on their own terms. Her work is raw, real, and rooted in truth and kind of truth Sojourner Truth fought for. The kind Malcolm X demanded and the kind Dr. King envisioned. Tonight, we dive into her journey, her mission, and the legacy she is building. Let's get into it. Keisha Woods is joining us tonight. Hello, Miss Woods.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
Just sit down because these conversations are necessary.
That they are.
Facts.
So what I like to start with first is, I like to give our audience a chance to learn more about the guests as we get into the interview. And so I'd like to start with asking you if you could tell us who was Keisha Woods before upgraded mindsets, before the coaching, before the
Ooh.
platforms.
Keisha was an individual who was lost in the sauce. I was somebody who always had a bold voice, but I really didn't know what I was speaking on or about. I felt like just because I was being loud and trying to get a point across that I was always right. I was someone who struggled a lot with her mental well-being. I was someone who did a lot of people pleasing in the process. I was someone who grew up, as a teen mom and gang affiliations and just acting like I always was grown at the age of 14. One would have called me a statistic, and I grew up, my mom in and out of my life. My grandmother raised me, and just really not understanding the power that I carry with all of the things that I have gone through to put me where I am today. I was a very angry individual growing up. And I know it was a lot to do with, how I grew up. My grandmother loved me to death, but, my mom just wasn't there. I'm blessed that my mom is still here today and we have a very close relationship, but I am very transparent. And the first 13 years of my life were pure chaos. I was someone who was born in the federal penitentiary. So that labeled me a statistic as soon as I came out of the womb, just understanding all of those things that played a factor into me being angry, me trying to find love in all the wrong places, me trying to beat up everybody because I was angry, and just understanding that all of those things shape me who I am today. I don't look at them as negative experiences. I look at them as lessons that I had to learn, unfortunately, but that has brought you the powerful, unapologetic woman that I am today, because I got accountable for a lot of the things that I caused, a lot of the things that I accepted that I shouldn't have. And that began the transformation in 2020. So just really shifting into who I'm supposed to be unapologetically has just been a journey in itself.
Oh, wow. So what experiences shaped your understanding of resilience and self-determination?
Well, 2020 was a breakthrough year for me. 2020, we were uncertain about a lot of things, March of 2020 to be exact. And mentally, I was breaking. I was tired of being the strong woman and, being there for everybody else. And I wasn't there for myself. And 2020, like I said, March of 2020 was that moment. It was like, I can't do this anymore. I started thinking irrationally, started thinking about self-harm, harming others. And I knew that there was something wrong with that because that wasn't something that I experienced all my life. So the fact that I was thinking about those things, I knew something was wrong, but I also knew that I could no longer hide it and suppress it. As someone that suppressed emotions, I only identified with anger, but I knew that it was time for me to change that. And my resilience journey began when I decided to take a 30-day fast from social media at a time when we weren't even supposed to be seeing people in person. But I had to take that fast because it was just too much for me. And I started journaling every day, my thoughts, my feelings, what I knew I wanted to change about my life, and starting to have those conversations with myself. So I think March of 2020 began that resilience journey for me, that I knew that I needed to recondition how I thought about life. And I always was a person that kind of went against the grain, but I went against the grain the wrong ways, and I didn't stand for anything when I was doing that. I just was doing it to be stubborn, to be hard headed, to say I was just being bad. But stepping into that level of resilience now, I'm willing to go against the grain and sacrifice for change and transformation. And that's what I've been doing ever since 2020.
What is that one thing in 2020, if it was just one thing, that helped you start that transition to thinking about you?
The fact that I was ready to hurt people. Literally, that I that just always pops up first, because I was really thinking about how I could cause harm to other people. And I fought, like I said, was in gangs and stuff growing up, but I never was the person that was ready to like cause massive damage. But the thoughts that I was having was putting me into that space, and that probably that one moment was like, okay, something's got to give. I can't keep doing I can't keep living day to day like this. I can't keep having these thoughts go through my head. And like I said, that was the moment that I realized that I've got to change. I sent a group text to my family and I was like, hey, I got to take a step back because I'm going to end up hurting somebody. And they didn't understand it at the time, but I had to do what was right for me. And that was probably the start of me really trying to recondition how I looked at life, how I thought about life, my values, my beliefs, just really understanding that those things change as we grow, as we get older. What I believed when I was 20, weren't the same beliefs that I had at that moment. My value systems were different, and society tells us that we're supposed to be a certain way all our lives. And that's why a lot of people stay stuck. I didn't want to be stuck anymore. So just breaking it down for one specific moment, it always boils down to me having those massive negative thoughts of really wanting to hurt somebody or people. I won't even say it was one person. I was ready to like hurt some people. So at once. Yeah, it was heavy.
When did you first realize you had a gift for helping others transform their lives?
Um, I honestly had that gift even before I became a coach. At my last job, before I became a full-time entrepreneur, they labeled me the bone collector. They'd be able to talk to me and I'd be able to give insight. And they knew that I wasn't going back, running back, telling their business and things like that. But also just in life, day to day with my family, I was the person that, everybody would come to ask questions about certain things. I was the person that, my friends would come to and overwhelm me with questions. But because I had that outdated belief of, oh, I'll just keep, pouring into everybody else. I don't need to be poured into, because at that time I didn't really understand the power of reciprocation. So I was pouring and pouring and pouring to everybody else, but I wasn't pouring into myself. So really, I really would always say I've always been like an unofficial coach, but it became official in June of 2020.
Oh, wow. What was the turning point that pushed you into personal evolution?
Uh, I think just being tired. As a woman, and especially as a Black woman, we bear a lot. We are nurturers by nature. So therefore, everybody expects us to be the strong woman, to carry everything. Oh, I got it. I can handle it. And we take on that responsibility because of that societal expectation. And I was tired of living that way. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't want to show up for other people. It just meant that I was tired of doing it at the expense of myself. So I knew that I still wanted to be supportive to people. I knew that I still wanted to help, but I had to figure out a way to do that by also prioritizing me, because I'm my number one priority. We will allow stress from other people's lives and other people's affairs to put us in the hospital. And I know there's been countless occasions before my transformation that I'd get involved in other people's stuff. I'm trying to rectify situations that had nothing to do with me. Just trying to insert myself. And I really don't operate like that anymore. If it doesn't apply to me, it's not, something that I'm going to insert myself into. So I think just really understanding that I can still be that person, just not at the expense of me, is really kind of my motto to this day.
Wow, that's so powerful because as you mentioned, it is a common thing that when there's just problems that need to be solved, I'm talking about America now.
Hmm.
America wants to run to the Black woman and put all of its troubles on her shoulders.
Yeah.
As you think about that and you reflect, what did you learn from that you're doing different?
Um, Understanding that everybody doesn't want to be saved, right? I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, because when I started, I wanted to reach every single woman, every single Black woman, every single woman in the world. I wanted them to hear my message and understand it and come along. But as I have evolved, I understand that there are people that are purposely how they are, and they want to be that way. Everybody doesn't want to be good and gracious. There are people out here that really want to be evil, and that's from a man and a woman's perspective. So me understanding that, because again, that's the mindset shift that I had to endure, understanding that everybody doesn't want to be good and jolly go lucky. Now that I know that, then I move accordingly, because even as a Black woman trying to carry everything, I have to teach that to my clients too, because they have that mindset of, I don't want to abandon them. If they're not doing the work as much as you are, you're not abandoning them. They are abandoning themselves. And what I no longer will allow is for us to let anyone else that's not doing the work to shift and recondition their life bring us down with them. So really just understanding that if you don't want to do it, I can't make you. You know that old age phrase go, you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. So just understanding that doesn't mean I don't want to help, and doesn't mean I don't want to change the world. But again, there are people out here who don't want to change. And that was one of the biggest mindset shifts that I had to adapt to.
Oh, love that. I love that. That's about as real as it gets, and that actually stands tall when we think about our situation here today
Yes.
In the country.
It's facts.
How did your upbringing influence your approach to authenticity and truth telling?
I think I've always had, I don't think I lacked confidence per se. I was a bully, growing up. I was bullied, and then I turned into a bully. And I think that I also knew that that was one of the things that would make people respect me. So having that twisted sense of, oh, I'm a fight, and you're gonna respect me. So when you see me, if you don't respect me, that violence is gonna come from that. I just don't fight anymore, not with my hands, but I still have that belief of being respected, and carrying myself in a different way, having the conversations, being a lifelong learner, being open-minded, understanding that everybody's not going to agree with what I agree with, and I'm not going to agree with what everybody else agrees with, but still being able to have a conversation, because I should still be able to converse with you even if we don't agree. That's what healthy debate is all about. Everybody's not going to agree. That's not how this world operates. But when you bring the evil, and when you bring in, consequences, negative consequences, just because somebody doesn't agree with you, then that's where the problem comes in. So just kind of understanding that everybody's not going to agree with how I operate. I'm very raw and uncut when I talk. And even when I'm doing content, podcasting and whatever else, I'm very raw and uncut. And I know everybody doesn't agree with that. And that's okay. It's for who does.
So what role did healing play in your journey towards leadership?
Oh, man. I think it played a big, big factor, because I'm still on a healing journey. Sometimes I could be sitting working, and because I spent years suppressing emotions, there would be something that'll come into my mind that I hadn't thought about for years because I suppressed it. So just being vulnerable and transparent enough, and being open to share that, because I share that with my clients, because they're coming to me being vulnerable and transparent, so I'm not gonna not be the same with them. So understanding that, I've got to show some form of vulnerability and transparency. Now, that doesn't mean telling all my business, because I don't do that, but I'm very transparent on this journey that I'm on. I'm very transparent with understanding that, growing up the way that I did definitely played a factor with me, holding myself back, suppressing emotions, not dealing with things, keeping quiet about certain situations. That's what we grew up. You don't talk about the things that leave out of this house. You better not say nothing. I don't operate like that anymore. Just because I did it doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. And Some people will say now, oh, we used to do these things back in the day, and that doesn't mean it wasn't wrong. So just because we did it back in the day doesn't mean that we should not be able to correct it today. I'm not gonna not say something just because I did it when I was 15 years old. It was wrong. So if I've changed and I've transformed, then I'm going to speak on it. Speaking on it from personal experience, speaking on it to try to change it, advocate for it, whatever it takes. But I'm very unapologetic on speaking on those things that I probably once engaged in when I was young.
So, what is one lesson life taught you the hard way that became a blessing?
Everybody can't come. Everybody can't come. Everybody shouldn't come. And I think that was probably one of the hardest lessons because, when you start a journey of, a good journey, you want to bring everybody with you. You want to say, hey, I've got this vision, let's make this happen. And everybody can't come. So understanding that, I had to grieve that because I've lost long-term friendships, behind this journey. Um, you know, distanced myself from family, some family. But I had to be okay with that because once I grieved that process, because grief is just not about death. And once I grieved that and understood that that was a process, especially when you've been around people over half your life, it's like a grieving process. But also understanding that that was a part of the journey. I was put here to make a difference. I wasn't put here excuse me,
Bless you.
stay stagnant. Thank you. I wasn't put here to stay stagnant. And it took me up until I was 44 years old to understand that. And it came with some sacrifices, but I can stand here today and tell you I have no regrets on anything that has either left my life, that has happened in my life, because it shaped who the person that I am today.
So, how do you stay grounded while carrying so much responsibility for
Ooh,
others?
let me tell you, it is not an easy job. And there are days where I'm not, right? There are days where I'm like, I'm not okay today. You know, about 6 months ago, I lost one of my closest friends. So I'm still in that process of grieving her. And there are days where I'm not okay. But the one thing that I had to learn, and this is where I have removed the strong woman cape, is saying, I'm not okay today. We don't want to say that we're not okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not good today. And doesn't mean that I'm going to stay there, but one thing that I have learned on this journey is to embrace all of my emotions, not just the anger that I used to embrace, but the sadness, the happiness, the worry, the thought, the questioning, all of my emotions, embracing all of them. And it has helped, but I have methods that I do daily. First 30 minutes of my day are all about me. I get up, my phone is not in the bed with me because that is a ritual that I get on my clients about. You're going to roll over and grab the phone. That's the first thing you're going to do. If it's in the bed with you, that's exactly what you're going to do. My phone is across the room on the charger. So when I get up, the first 30 minutes are all about me, whether it's all about prayer, meditation, just reflecting in that moment. It's all about me. And once I do that, then I'll get up, grab the phone, do whatever it is I need to do. But that just sets the tone for my day. Because what happens when the first thing you do is grab your phone, you're now taking in the energy of what you're seeing on whatever you're looking at. So you log on and the first thing you see is, one of your close schoolmates passed away. So now you're sad. Now you're, oh my God, and you see everybody like sending the praying hands and sorry for your loss. You're taking in that energy. Or the current system of America right now. You get on social media and the first thing you see is something going on. Somebody says something and now it's got you mad. So now you're taking on the energy of being mad because of what somebody said on a social media platform. And now your day is all screwed up. So I'm very intentional about the first 30 minutes of my day being about me, because I'm mentally preparing myself for whatever BS is gonna come from the day ahead. So that's I'm very intentional about that, just from the morning perspective.
What does rewriting your story mean to you personally?
That I am not my past. That I'm not my past. I'm not anything that people look at and say, "Oh, I remember when you did this." I'm not that person anymore, and I have no problem correcting anyone that says that to me. So rewriting my story means saying, "Don't try to throw that in my face anymore." Do I accept it and acknowledge it? I do, but I don't need you to do that. I'm
Mhm.
rewriting my story here. I'm changing how I operate, how I think, how I live, how I breathe, and you're not going to try to bring me back to that. So I'm going to rewrite this story unapologetically, whether you like it or not. So rewriting that means just me being confident in what it is that I'm doing and continuing to make that impact my way. Because one thing that I also want to let people know, you can make an impact your way. Don't let society make you believe that you've got to do something this specific way to make a difference or to make an impact. One thing that I know is, as we continue to try to fight for, what we're fighting for, there are going to be different areas where we need different people. Everybody can't lead the organization. Everybody can't, talk about this. We need people that are planning over here. We need strategists that are planning here. We need the people about the finances. We need the people about where we're going to put things. So we need a healthy amount of people doing different things to be able to make that impact. So I say that from a community standpoint is you show up for your community your way.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. I love that because there's so much of this telling folk that you must do things this way and this
Mhm.
is the process.
Yep.
That process is not for everybody.
At all. At all. And I understand that so well. And, I get people that kind of, turn up and look at me and be like, well, why are you doing it this way? It's because this is my purpose in life. And I walk it very unapologetically. Um, I don't always have every answer, but I don't claim to have every answer. I don't say that everything that I talk about is going to work 100%, but I'm going to always have an idea. I'm going to always speak on that idea, but I'm going to be very mindful on who I speak on it with, because everybody is not receptive to receive those kind of conversations. So I'm very mindful of that.
It's all right. um, how has your definition of success evolved over the years?
Oh, let me see. I'm proud to be a full-time entrepreneur. If you'd have asked me in 2019 if I would be an entrepreneur, I'd have laughed. I got fired from my corporate job in November of 2020, still during, COVID and whatnot. But I decided at that time I was not going to try to find another job. I was going to step into entrepreneurship full time. Did I know what I was doing 100%? I did not. Did I have 6 months of savings to where I could say, yep, I'm going to do this? I did not. But understanding that this is what I wanted to do, and being able to write that story, start that story from a full-time entrepreneur perspective, changed the game for me. So my first success for me as an entrepreneur was accepting the fact that I was about to become a full-time entrepreneur. And then it just went from there. I've always started as a coach. I acquired the business aspect of it in 2023 because I was living the journey that people were asking me about. And I was attracting women who either wanted to start businesses or were on the journey and they just weren't able to cut and figure out why. And what I discovered is I was helping them find their purpose, not only in life, but in business. So, assuming the business coach title in 2023 was another level of success for me, because that was the journey that I was walking. I was real life hardcore entrepreneur and I wanted to be able to help women, make it easier for them to be able to step into that journey.
Let's transition over to your work as a community builder. What does community mean to you in the context of healing and growth?
I believe that we have to have the conversations. I think what happens is we want to help community, but we don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations to be able to do that. Everybody can be surface level with things. Everybody can say, oh, we want to help with this, but you can't help everybody with a general answer. So you have to have those conversations and you have to normalize those conversations. I'll speak from a mental health perspective. I'm the president of our NAMI affiliate here, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I believe that in order for us to normalize people wanting to talk more about their mental health, especially in the Black communities, then the conversations have to be normalized. People are scared to tell people that they have they're going something's going on in their head because they don't want to be called crazy, because growing up, that's what was told. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with you, pray about it, there's nothing wrong with you, you fine, and people were real life struggling mentally. So normalizing those conversations to me is a very, very big part, and I'm very active in wanting to do that. NAMI has what they call Sharing Hope, which is for the Black and Brown communities, is for us, by us. And it really has a curriculum set up for us to really talk about the conversations that need to be talked about, whether it's the stigmas that came along with growing up, whether it is, from a, the religious perspective, but really normalizing the conversations. And I believe that once we continue to normalize that, more and more people will speak up, and then we'll truly be able to start to heal our community and really be more effective, because we can't sit here and act like our mental health doesn't play a cause in people not, going to school, people not, going to trades and being able to apply to make more money and things like that. We're not going to sit here and not talk about that. Those are factors. We don't want to talk about it, but it's conversations that need to be had. So I believe just normalizing the conversations and having a supportive space where there's no judgment, I think is a great start. And I'm very active in doing that right now.
Wow. So, how did UPM Business Suites come to life?
Whew, so UPM, crazy enough, I was actually let go from my job November 20th of 2020. The funny thing is, I actually acquired the building that is now UPM Business Suites November 2nd of 2020. So I was already on my coaching journey with upgraded mindsets, and me and two other amazing ladies that were my business partners at the time, we had sat down during the summer and we said we wanted to come up with a resource hub that people could come here and get a variety of different services under one roof. That was put into motion June of 2020. We said we're going to give ourselves a year to find a building. We found the building in less than 6 months. And November 2nd is when we acquired the keys for that. UPM has always been that hub, but the people inside it has transitioned beside me. My prior business partners are no longer business partners, but we are still close as ever. They are still in corporate America, and, it just didn't align for them, which was fine, but we had already established the base. So I was able to continue and operate it as managing operator. To now we have 5 other women business owners in here that are operating. Myself as a coach, I have a financial broker and insurance agent in here. I have a licensed esthetician. I have a crafter in here that does all of, print services. I have a holistic nurse coach in here. So we are really a hub of being able to provide services, not just for women, but for our community.
Oh, wow. Now, that in itself, that's doing a thing. And see, that's what, when I just think about community in general, these are some of the things that we should all be thinking about doing, because
Absolutely.
if we can keep things or resources and services like this in the community,
Mhm.
there's no need to go outside.
Exactly.
You keep everything here. and you continuously to build on that.
Yep.
So with that in mind, have you guys done any like expansions where bringing on other people, other businesses, other services, or is that a thought process right now?
Oh, we actually have. I love collaborating with other businesses. Myself and Lori, which is our financial broker here, we hosted an event, end of year growth experience. It was a women's experience, but I'm always open to collaborate and converse with other people to bring these resources. The one thing that I do not want to be is the leader in everything. I don't need to be the leader in everything, right?
Right, right.
That's not something that I want. So, yes, am I a leader? I absolutely am a leader, but that doesn't mean I need to lead everything. My ego, I don't have the ego, but if I hear something that is going on or something that may be happening that I want to be a part of, absolutely, I can contribute here. I can, here, I'm on other boards within my community, but I'm not the leader. So, I don't have a problem with working with other organizations that align with my missions, my values, and my belief systems. I don't have a problem with that. And I will do it with no problem because it's still making an impact. I don't have to be the leader. My name doesn't have to be at the top of the page to, know that I'm making a difference in those areas. I have mine. I have upgraded mindsets. I have UPM business suites, and, other things that I'm doing within the community. But if it aligns with me and I have the time, because again, I also pay attention to my mental well-being. I'm not going to overflow myself or take on too many things because it contradicts what I stand for. I am my number one priority. So if it's messing with that, then I gotta maybe sit down and be like, I don't know, not right now. I don't have a problem with saying no now. I'm very big on no. And no doesn't require an explanation because people will look at you after you say no because they're waiting on you to explain why you say no. Yeah, I'm not that person. I'm just gonna tell you no. I'm not doing it. I'm not able right now. I just don't have the capacity. But I just don't have to be the leader with everything. And that works out because people understand that I'm willing to work. They see that I'm willing to work with other people, whether it's a small part, they will approach me. They'll email, call, stop by the office. Hey, I've got this idea, I'm wondering, if you want to get in on this, you've got input on this. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about it. So I don't have a problem with that. And that's what has helped me along the way.
So, what needs did you see in your community that pushed you to create this space?
The fact that we rely too much on big corporations.
Ooh.
I understand that we are not in a position to say that we can't, we don't need them. And I hate that. But I also know that I walk the walk. I will support small businesses 90% of the time, whether I'm going to get something to eat. I've tried not to utilize or I try not to go to these big, restaurants and stuff like that, chain restaurants. I try to really stay supportive within my community, small businesses, period. And I don't even put a color on that. I will support a small business that is effective, that I like. Their products are good. The food may be good. I'm going to continue to patronize them. And I've gotten myself into the habit of looking more from a small business perspective as a small business than actually automatically just going and saying, hey, I'm going to, just go to this box change store. Now, let me say this, because just because I'm supporting small business doesn't mean I'm going to support any small business. You can't be reckless and you can't be negative and your customer service is trash and all of that. I'm not supporting that. I'm not doing that. So when I say I'm supporting the ones that I know are actually operating their business the way they should be. I will support it time and time again, but I'm not going to sit there and bash anybody that's not. You just won't get my money. So, it's work on yourself, but then, hey, let me give you my business card because I might be able to help you. So,
Right. So, how do you cultivate collaboration among women entrepreneurs?
um, I'm very mindful. I have to people room. I don't want to collaborate with everybody because, again, as I said earlier, everybody doesn't want to be worked with,
Yep.
So just being mindful. I pay attention to energy big time. I used to just feel like, oh, everybody, everybody wants to do this. They don't, and understanding that I am just going to pay attention to the room. If you got somebody that's sitting over there, they're not engaging, they're not, or they're in their little crew. When I go to a networking event, I'm not going to talk to the same three people that I know. Right. So I notice sometimes when you're in these spaces, people are talking to the same people that they know. What's the point of coming to a networking event if you're not wanting and willing to network with new people? That's what I'm about. I'm to the point now where I go out of town to network. I do virtual networking because I want to meet new people. And that has helped me because I've been able to be speakers for people in Canada, virtual summits, things like that. It has put me in the room with women who do want to collaborate. And I'm not just limiting myself to my community locally, and I never have. And I think that's what has allowed me to continue to build and grow and be successful on that level, because I never looked at it as just my local community. I always had what I call a global mindset. And that involves me, I've got clients in 10 different states right now. It never was a local thing for me. That doesn't mean I don't want to help my local community, because I do, but I'm not going to limit myself to my local community when it comes to making an impact.
I think again that is truly wonderful. But can you tell us this? I understand the work that you do with women. How do you embrace, people or groups outside of just women to bring them into the fold? Because apparently you've got a great sauce. You've got a great sauce, and I think, I think a lot of people might want to experience that sauce, especially, people that are in your local area right now. What
Yeah.
are some of the things that, they should be thinking about, when it comes to, wanting to reach out to you, to meet you, to talk about, the growth that they want to do and learning how you can help them?
I want people to know that I'm open, always open to conversation. I love to talk. If y'all haven't picked up on that just from this live, I do. I love to talk. I have 2 podcasts. I love to talk. So I want people to know that what you may have known about me in the past, my olden days, if you're thinking about coming to have a conversation with me, please don't let that be a hindrance for you. I have a friend right now to this day. We grew up on opposite sides of the playing field, gang affiliation. She was in one and I was in another. We were, enemies by association. And now we are tight as ever. The power of shifting, the power of growth on both of our behalf. So I want people to know that I'm always open for a conversation. I'm always open for that. Now, I will be honest, if you've ever tried to cause me harm, or if you've ever, been malicious to where you've caused me harm, I may not be talking to you, because again, I'm on my healing journey. But I'm
Right.
open to anybody that is ready to have, that conversation, to have a conversation with me, and at least let me offer you some resources. Because the one thing I also say too, if I'm not able to help you, to assist you, and to support you, then I have resources of others that can.
What challenges do women face when building businesses that people often overlook?
Um, I think with women, sometimes we like to build businesses just strictly off of passion, right? That's great, but there also has to be purpose behind it. I have the 4 P's with upgraded mindsets. It's passion, purpose, perseverance, and performance. You do have to be passionate, but there has to be purpose behind it. You do have to persevere and you have to perform. And I think what happens with us is because we're emotional, we start these businesses and we assume that those closest to us are going to be our biggest support systems. And what happens? That does not happen. And then now they're in their feelings because they've started this business really thinking that, those closest to them was going to be their biggest support system. But you got to look at it from a perspective of a business. If you're starting a business, you don't want it to be just for your family and friends. That's a hobby. If you're starting a business to say, I want to sell shirts for my family and friends for family reunions and stuff like that, that's a hobby. But if you're saying, I want to start a business selling shirts for nonprofit organizations, I really want to, make shirts for nonprofit organizations. Okay, now you're talking about a business, something where you're able to make and turn that into a business mindset and a business strategy. So really understanding if you want to start a business, then you've got to be in the mindset of that. And that involves bringing in some of the corporate process. That involves you hiring a coach, a mentor, somebody that can help you, somebody that has done what it is that you're trying to do. Because as women, again, we try to take on everything as the strong woman, and feel like we can do everything. You've never started a business before. So please do not think that you're going to be able to start and effectively build a business by yourself. Realize that you do have to get help. You've got to get the help, and you've got to get it from somebody that has done what it is that you're trying to do. You also have to get in spaces with people that are doing what it is that you want to do. If you are just still staying around the same people, guess what? Nothing's going to happen, because you're still in the same environments and you're trying to build something new. New things require new environments, new spaces, new people, new things, new habits, new mindset. So, as women, I will tell you this: yes, you are strong, but I want you to stop calling yourself strong. Because what happens is when you call yourself strong, people say, oh, she got it. She good. She's strong. She can handle it. I identify as a woman of strength. There's a difference. The difference is, as a woman of strength, yes, I can carry a lot of things, but I don't want to do it by myself. And I'm very open and transparent about that. I'm vulnerable about that. And that has carried me to where people know, yeah, Keisha need a little support right now. It's now where I have people that do text me or call me and check on me, because I'm vulnerable and I'm transparent about my vulnerability. So you people won't know if you don't tell them. We say, oh, I want to, they should just know. No, sometimes you got to give little hints. You got to give little signs and things like that. And if you have a true friend in your corner, you should be able to have that conversation and say, you know what, right now I'm just not doing good. And if they're a true friend, they're going to be able to help you get through that, whether it's just holding you while you cry. But, you're a woman of strength, not a strong woman, because a strong woman is expected to just carry everything and not break. You can break, because I almost did in 2020.
How do you measure community impact beyond numbers?
Uh, I think feedback. I love feedback. I'm a forms girl, so I'll fill out, forms and things like that. But I also want people to give feedback. Hey, I got a question for you. What do you think about this? Somebody I know that's doing something that I may be thinking about. I have no problem with the outreach. Being able to have that community to where you're able to, extend outreach and have that conversation. Yeah, numbers do matter, but I think relationships matter more, because you're able to make an impact when people see you, working together with people. And that also goes to the youth. I'd say this too, because right now here in my city, we're kind of experiencing, kind of a youth crisis. But when they see grown adults working together, then it will prompt those to want to work together. But if they see you bickering and arguing and going back and forth, then how do you expect them? We want to lead by example. So I think community impact from that really just involves building those relationships, those authentic, genuine relationships. I think that's a powerful start.
What is the most rewarding part of building spaces for others to thrive?
Oh, I get such a sense of fulfillment when someone tells me that I've helped them with that. Um, I really probably in the last 2 years have really just accepted that this is my calling and this is my purpose. I've done it, but getting more spiritually in tune and really understanding that I'm here to make a difference and to leave a legacy of being able to show people how to be their unapologetic self, how to be confident in being their unapologetic self, and how to be able to make a difference their way. So I think just knowing that I'm making those differences in people's lives, it's making a difference in my life. I get such a sense of satisfaction when a client texts me and be like, oh, this happened, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. I get teary eyed sometimes. And I used to be a tough girl. I didn't cry, but I'll cry at the drop of a dime now. So just being able to hear that and be appreciated. That just gives me a sense of fulfillment like no other.
Hmm. What is the biggest misconception about community leadership?
Uh, Phew, to me, it's ego. I think a
Mm.
lot of times when it comes to people who are in leadership, it goes to their head. And I literally spoke about this a couple weeks ago at a conference about a lot of silos and from not just individuals, but organizations. We need to work together as a real community and understand that every organization is not strong in every suit. There are weaknesses, and really identifying those is really gonna take the ego out of things, because once you identify there's weaknesses or holes, gaps, whatever you want to call it, if you're a community builder, then you should be wanting to reach out to others that may have strengths in those areas that you're weak in. So taking the ego out of the equation will change the game so much. And really just understanding that, and I'm speaking to organizations, individuals, take the ego out of the equation. We're in crisis when it comes to mental health. We're in crisis when it comes to our youth. Egos cannot be a factor right now. We've got to turn those off. We've got to shut that off. We've got to brush them under the rug. And we really got to get our feet dirty all together.
So, what are some things that you can tell our audience when it comes to a situation like that? What are some things that they should not do?
Ooh, Lord, we got all night. No, I'm just kidding. I think that we've got to get out of the outdated systems of not working together. And I say that because just because your organization is this and has these certain values, there are values that and systems that you may want to adjust because you really are trying to be inclusive. We have so many different things going on, so you have the homeless crisis, you have the mental illness crisis, you have the youth crisis. There's not one organization that can tackle all three of those things effectively. Now you can try. I think we've got to stop being stingy with our grant money, and be open to bring others in that are really going to help us make a difference. Because are you trying to make a difference, or are you just trying to be performative in saying that you're making a difference? And when I say performative, meaning that it look good on social media, it look good on paper, but your action not matching that. So I think we've got to stop trying to handle everything on our own. The crisis has gotten too big, and we definitely have to pull together as a community. Big organizations, small organizations. If you're a big organization in the communities that you're trying to, say you're making an impact on, then why are you not reaching out to these smaller communities and these smaller organizations to ask the questions? The ones that I say are out in the trenches. I have a few nonprofits here locally that they are in the trenches with these homeless people. They are in the trenches with these people that are, struggling from mental illness. So why are you not out having conversations with them on how you can help them, because they're the ones in the trenches. So when I say stop trying to silo and trying to make changes from behind the desk, that's what I mean. You've got to get in and get these people that are out here in the field and get them involved with you just as well, because that's just going to increase the impact. We got a long ways to go. There's no overnight fix, there's no quick fix, but we can begin the journey to fix if we just again take the ego out of it and stop acting like that we can do it by ourselves.
You said one thing that just it just kept hitting me, and that is, that working together. How do we? What are some suggestions for those that are running that gatekeeping process that you just mentioned, that need to come out of that tower and need to actually do the right thing? Because, I think the more and more, as you was just describing that situation you was describing, it puts our communities that much more at risk because, as you said, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, look what I'm doing."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look at what you're doing. But then these organizations that are up and coming and are, as you say, out in them trenches, they need that. They need a little grant. They need some assistance. They need to be brought along as well. What's wrong with doing that? Why
Exactly.
do you think we have that issue still going on?
It revolves back to me. It revolves back to people's personal development. A lot of people lack it. I was talking about this about a week ago. Sometimes we let our titles and our degrees define us, whereas continuing education in life should be a goal of yours. You should always, if you're expanding and building and growing, you've got to do that from a personal perspective first. I teach that with upgraded mindsets. You can't come to me and say you want to start a business and but you don't feel like that you need to grow personally. I'm not the coach for you. I'm not the person for you, because we're going to work on your personal growth so we can make sure that what you're trying to do as a business is aligned with your purpose in life. You have to have a purpose driven business. That's the number one way to be successful. But understanding that you have to know that you've got to work on you. So if you are somebody that's like, that's just how I am, that's just how it is, then that's probably somebody that don't want to grow. They don't want to acknowledge those things. And that's unfortunate. But in order for us to shake that, we all have to acknowledge that we all have room to grow. There's areas that we all need to work on, and you really need to figure that out. And if you can't figure that out by yourself, then you better get somebody involved in your life that can hold you accountable and help you with that, because being a leader requires continual growth, because you're not going to stay leading the same thing. So you have to grow with the times, and that involves personal growth, personal development, self-reflection, all of those things. And a lot of people aren't doing that. They just staying stuck in the ways of 2010, and it's 2026. So understand that you've got some growth to do as well. And once you become that lifelong learner, then you will be open and receptive, and you won't be so quick to gatekeep.
Mhm. So, how do you balance community needs with personal boundaries?
Oh, I say no. I'm big on that. There is no long explanation needed for that. I'm gonna say
Okay.
no. Um, I don't I don't respond fast anymore, because before I used to just say yes out of because I felt obligated to. So I definitely listen. And if it's not something that's aligned with me and it's just not anything that I stand for, I'll say no pretty fast, but I don't respond as fast anymore. So making sure that I'm balanced. Okay, so you're asking me about something. What does that look like? What is that ask looking like? So now you're telling me what that ass looks like. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I got this going on and this going on and this going on. That just may not be a fit for me right now. Also, with clients, I don't accept everybody, because, again, I've got to make sure that you are ready. I had somebody that wanted to hire me, but she was somebody, that I knew in my older days. And she just kept bringing up old stuff. And I'm like, yeah, the first time it was like, kind of, second time, you said something and I was like, yeah, but I'm not that person anymore, and then when you said something again and I had to correct you, like, listen, that's not what this is. Oh, girl, you know how it is. I don't. And you know what I did? We're going to go ahead and move on. And I'm just not the person for you, because that's somebody that would have not been coachable, for one. For two, you would have kept throwing my past as a justify as why you're not changing. And so I'm looking at all of these things and I'm thinking about all these things, and that was just not something that I wanted to work with. So that's just really a part of me setting my boundaries and understanding that, again, I don't got to work with everybody. I align with who I'm supposed to align with, and I'm okay with that.
So, what legacy do you hope UPM Business Suites leave behind?
I really wanted to leave behind the power of collaborative, continual community. Whether we're all here at the same day, whether it's just me here right now, there's always a level of support. Every month we do growth building. We'll go somewhere, we'll go out to eat, we'll do an exercise together. Because it's just not about our businesses, it's about us bonding and building as women. So understanding that, yes, you can mix business and personal, but only with other like-minded individuals that are not on the same journey as you, but are seeking the same sense of healing, transformation, resilience, growth, and really leaving that legacy that it's possible. Because I know that, women get a bad rep of being catty and underhandedly evil and things like that. But there are women out here who truly want to see each other grow and be successful. And that's what I want UPM Business Suites to be known for.
Let's transition over to your work in women's advocacy. What does it mean to be a women's advocate in today's world?
Whew, it means a lot. But if I want to generalize and simplify, I will say standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. When you're advocating, you've got to be ready to sacrifice. And that's for anything. If you know that it's wrong, if you know that it's not something that is for the better for us as women, and you continue to just allow it to happen, we all have voices, right? And I do know that with sacrifice comes consequence, but advocating, you're prepared for that. So I know my level of women advocacy involves, some people not really liking how I do things. That's okay. But I'm reaching the ones that do. I'm making an impact. And like I tell people all day, I would not be 6 years, almost 6 years in the game if I was doing something wrong. So advocating for that and being unapologetic and being ready to sacrifice, is something very important. Will I sacrifice my life? Hey, we don't know where we're going to get in life. It is what it is, but I'm so serious about wanting to make changes for us that who's to say what's going to come? And I'll be honest, the days of quiet protest for me are just about over. So I'm just not on the whole, let's just sit back and, just see what happens. That's why we're where we're at, because we keep just sitting back and just watching what happens. And then we get on social media and get emotional behind it, but nothing is happening. And they don't care about what we're getting on social media talking about. They could care less. They're still doing what they're doing. So there's going to have to be some radical action that's required. And I won't say that I am not willing to be a part of that. So whatever comes of that, comes of that. But I know that I'm very serious about us as women and being able for us to continue to fight for our rights on every level.
So I want you to explain this one term for me because I love it to death and I use it myself a lot. But for those that don't quite understand, can you please define unapologetic?
Yes. Unapologetic means you are doing what you want to do, regardless of what everybody says. You can be in a room of 100 people that's doing something this way, and you are the only person that's doing it that way. And everybody's looking at you like, oh my God, aren't you sorry that you're doing it that way? And you look them dead in their eyes and you say, I am not. I'm not sorry that I'm doing things this way. It gives a level of confidence because you're exuding that confidence and you're showing people that you are confident in what you're talking about, what you're doing, how you're operating. You know, I see people that are unapologetic about their toxic lives. Hey, I can't respect it, but it's what they choose to do. People are very unapologetic about some of the lives that they live. We see our government is unapologetic in how they're moving, right? It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. You know, we can write dissertations on social media all day. They don't care about that. They are unapologetic about it. And instead of us getting on social media crying about it, we need to be behind the scenes strategizing about it.
Mhm.
And I'm very unapologetic in saying that out loud because it's the truth and it needs to be said. And I'm very unapologetic about not sugarcoating. I'm very unapologetic about when I talk to my clients. I'm very unapologetic when I talk on my podcast because that's how we need to be if we're really going to make a difference. We're not going to make a difference by operating in emotion. We're not. So I'm very unapologetic about the logic of how we need to be handling things if we really do want to see ourselves successful and breaking barriers and stigmas.
I second that emotion 5,000%. I agree with you 1,000,000%,
Yeah.
because that is exactly how it needs to be.
Yeah.
And that is the tone that needs to be set.
Sex.
How do you help women reclaim their voice after years of silence or self doubt?
Um, the one thing that I really start off with women when they start working with me is we really got to sit down and be accountable for the things we allowed in our lives. One thing that I know we will do is, we try to be the victim. And, some of us have been victims. And I'm not speaking from certain perspectives from a victim mentality. I'm speaking more of the mindset of, oh, everybody, I love everybody, I want to help everybody. Well, I'm going to hold you accountable because you knew they were doing you wrong for 5 years and you allowed them to do you wrong for 5 years. So let's get accountable for that, because now once you get accountable, you're going to want to know the tools and the strategies so you don't continue to allow yourself to get pushed over. So, really having the conversation. And then also, I encourage my clients to write a letter to self. Writing that letter to self is basically another level of accountability, starting from the present and working your way to the past. Why am I so mad? Why am I so angry? Why do I attract these kind of people? It involves some inner work, and I'm not a therapist. I don't try to portray one. And if I feel like that, once we're talking, that there needs to be some form of intervention from a therapeutic and clinical perspective, I'm definitely going to refer that. I have therapists on standby. Hey, here's a number, here's a resource, you may want to, follow up. Again, it's up to them to do so, but I'm not going to try to be your therapist because I'm not that. But accountability is probably one of the biggest things, because now you can say, you know what, I allowed this and I'll be damned if I let it happen again.
Yep.
So I think accountability is probably the biggest thing when I on board, and self-reflection, but also understanding, are your values still the same as they were 5, 10, 20 years ago? Are your beliefs still the same 5, 10, 20 years ago? The systems that you used in survival mode are not going to be the same systems that you're going to use to thrive. So we're going to work on those systems, but that also involves us figuring out if your values and beliefs are still the same. They may change, they may still be the same, but we definitely have to sit back and have a conversation and reflect and see if they are. And if they're not, then let's work on becoming unapologetic and shifting into your new values, your new beliefs. So that's just the onboarding part. We work together. I have packages that 6 to 8 weeks is pretty much what I require, because you can't talk to me one time and think that you're going to transform in life. It's just not. You've been systematically programmed to operate a certain way for 45 years. Now we're here to recondition your mind. We're here to shift how you look at things, how you think about things, and that's going to require some time.
What patterns do you see most often among women trying to break generational cycles?
Ooh, probably trying to bring everybody along. Um, that was me speaking from a personal perspective. Once I realized that I did not have some of the same values that I had growing up, I then realized that I wanted everybody else around me to not have those same values either. And I think what happens with us as women is wait. We will wait until the other person says, "Oh yeah, I want to I'm come on, yep, I'm ready to change now." And I have seen women wait months and months and months, and while they're waiting, they're frustrated because the other person is not doing anything. They are not ready to make the shifts that they want, that you feel they should be making. But you have sat for the last 6 months and waited for them to make a hint of change. And now you're mad and you're angry and you're stuck because you waited, when in all actuality, you should have just started 6 months ago, because you can't make anybody do anything. You are in control of yourself, and you shouldn't be trying to hold yourself back waiting on somebody else to get on board with you, because their journey may be different. They may not supposed to be starting, the same time that you're starting. There may need to be another life experience that happens for them to really get on board with that, because you got to want to change. You got to want to change. You've got to, even I use the word motivate, but I'm shifting more into the discipline, because you've got to want to do things even when you're not motivated to do them. And getting yourself disciplined will require new habits, new adjustments, new routes, new routines, and also involve new people. Because again, these people, they're not ready to change. If someone's always saying, "You know how I am, girl, don't worry, you know how I get," they're not ready for change. You're not going to talk to them enough to where they're going to say, "You know what, you're right. Come on, let's do this together." They not ready, and you can't wait for them.
There's a comment here from Michelle King, and you can respond if you like.
Oh, I don't see it. I'm sorry. Where's she? Let me see.
It's on the screen. She's saying Coach K, and she's got the muscle, the praying hands, and the heart, and
Oh,
looks
yes.
like something
She
Kim.
is
You
one
see
of,
it?
yep, there it is. Yep. So she is actually one of the lovely ladies here at UPM Business Suites. She is a nurse of almost 30 years, and we are very much aligned in our mission of wanting to really embrace the healing side. And I love that her being here, because she comes from the clinical background, and she still wants us to be able to make the change the holistic way. So, we have those kind of conversations all the time. She is all about, making change for our people and being able to educate them from the holistic wellness perspective, which is, and for her, is mind, body, and spirit. So, I love that she's in here with us, because we're making that difference together. So I appreciate it.
So let's transition over to your entrepreneurship and you being the CEO of Upgraded Mindsets. Can you tell us what inspired you to create Upgraded Mindsets?
Really, the name kind of speaks for itself. When I was in that journey in 2020, I was ready to upgrade my mind. ready to look at things differently, think differently, be different. And I knew that involved this, because one thing I tell people, this is where our mind is, where everything begins, every thought, every decision. And sometimes we take advantage of that. We, you know, take it lightly and we don't think about it. But ever since that moment in 2020, when I knew I was ready to make a change, I'm always thinking about how I'm upgrading my mind, how I'm elevating, how I think, how I move, how I live. And that is really where Upgraded Mindsets was birthed. It was birthed during that 30-day fast that I took from social media. I was journaling every day, and I decided probably about day 24 that I really did wanted to become a coach and start helping other women do the same thing that I was doing at that time. So that's where Upgraded Mindsets was birthed. Just really wanting to upgrade my own mind, and that name came into play because I wanted to help others do the same.
Well, tell our audience about Upgraded Mindsets. What are the services that they do? What's the operations and the functions of the company?
So, Upgraded Mindsets is a full scale coaching and supportive consulting platform. Upgraded Mindsets is for women who are seeking life's purpose in their personal and professional endeavors, starting a business. And really, we help you like really get clear on what it is that you want in life. We help you break the stigma of being stuck. We help you break the stigma of not prioritizing yourself. We really help you get clear on what it is that you want in life. We help you understand that it's not too late for you to live your best life. And the platform that we provided through, whether it's through one-on-one coaching with me, whether it is through group coaching through me, whether it's through my platform that I have, the Upgraded Mindsets Women's Circle, Upgraded Mindsets Media, which are my podcast, which is Empowering Real Talk, The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. Anywhere you catch Upgraded Mindsets, it's going to be something to help women really discover, activate, and align the best versions of themselves, figure out what that is, and help them activate it confidently and unapologetically. We've got to stop shrinking ourselves. We've got to stop acting like that we can wait until our kids graduate school or wait until this happens. I've got to be a wife and a mom. You can be all of those things, but why can you not be happy for yourself? So many of us lead unfulfilled lives and we feel like we're supposed to because of the titles that we carry. And I'm here to help us break that stigma. You can do everything that you're doing and have those responsibilities, but you can also have it with you being the number one priority. And once I teach women how to do that, the game changes for them. They're living happier lives. They're taking trips. They're doing what it is that they're doing. They're saving money. They're all of these things because their habits, their mindset is shifting. So now it's not just about living life, but it's also securing life, whether it's saving money, whether it's doing all of those things. We put all of those factors in together. If you're wanting to start a business, we help you be purpose driven and help you work on the entire ecosystem. There's so much more that requires starting a business than an LLC and an EIN and posting on social media every couple of days your products. We work on the entire ecosystem. That ecosystem involves coming up with a strategy. That ecosystem involves what platforms are going to benefit you. That ecosystem involves doing your research with your competitors because, yes, you do need to know what your competitors are doing. It doesn't mean you're envious, jealous. It means you need to know what's selling. So, really working with them to figure out their ecosystem and being able to activate and implement the things that are required for them to be successful in that. Just working with women on different levels, whether, like I said, whether you're starting businesses or not, we're here to help you get clear on what it is that you want. We're here to help you stop playing small, stop shrinking yourself, stop putting yourself on the back burner, and really step into the person that you're destined to be.
Oh wow. See, that's great work right there. And
Thank
that
you.
right there, that's got some depth to it that I can understand your process of helping them to evolve and to grow.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And that is
Mhm.
something that I think when you get more and more strong business people that understand that whole purpose, it makes that big of a difference. Michelle
Absolutely.
just put another comment here in the chat. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it, and please continue
Thank
to tune into
you.
the show. Um, so, how did you develop your signature approach to mindset reconciliations or reconditioning?
Um, I think understanding, because there was moments where I'm like, maybe I'm a little too harsh, maybe I'm a little too mean. I went through those moments. There were those moments. I'm a growing business, so there were moments where it's like, maybe I should tone it down a little bit, but that was a struggle for me. Anytime I tried to be silent or try to be not necessarily nice, but when I was trying to talk like this and you guys, that's just not me, right? So I think that
I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
you're
I
fine.
think I would have
But
laughed
it's
at.
the reality, right? It's the truth. I'm very bold in my words, and because I've always been that way, I just
Mhm.
had to incorporate that into my brand. So being able to speak boldly, to have those conversations and be raw and uncut about it, um that's what, like, I had my women's community, I'm vulnerable with them and I share that with them. Like, someone told me the other day that they think sometimes I may just be a little too loud. And it was like, I've heard that all for years. Even when I was in corporate America, I did a lot of customer service management jobs and things like that. So they would always say my voice would carry. Oh, well, your voice, you could tone it down a little bit. So, hearing that, it's nothing new for me, but I'm no longer allowing it to deter me and distract me. So if I'm too loud for you, turn your volume down or something. Like, I don't know, but I'm not gonna, dim my voice and talk in a way that is not authentic to me, because I'm very authentic with myself. And now that I know that I can be that and still make an impact because I'm doing that, they really burn up now because it's making a difference. So just being my authentic self, it is just continue to carry me, and I know that it's making an impact because I have the clients to prove it. I have the podcasting to prove it. I have the finances to prove it, and it's just what it is. So again, everybody's not going to like it, but I'm not here to be liked by everybody. I'm here to make a difference.
What challenges did you see face building a mission driven business?
Uh Probably not getting responses from people, because when I first started, I did reach out to certain people, certain businesses, basically saying, wherever I could come in and help, you know, but I didn't get the responses that I wanted to get. And that was kind of hurtful because, again, I've been in my community for years. So I wanted to step up and I wanted to make a difference. And if that required me being mentored by somebody, or if that required me, working under somebody to, make that happen, I was open to that. But the doors just got shut. So I could have gave up and just been like, you know what, I'm not doing this, but I didn't. And what I did was I really just sat back, reflected, because I am big on self reflection. I encourage people to do that daily, whether it's 5 minutes one day, 20 minutes another day. You need to be self reflecting every day. And I started self reflecting. It's like, okay, so these specific people aren't reaching back out, they're not responding. So now what am I going to do? So I stepped outside of my local community and began building with people who I was trying to reach out to here, the kind of people, but they just weren't here. And what happened is I was able to get coached, mentored, taught some strategies and skills, got some tools, got a great toolkit to be able to bring back and start building my own table. and started building that table. And, some people try to circle back and it's just what it is. But if it's not aligned with me now, because I'm not the same person I was in 2021 when I was trying to reach out to you, I'm definitely not that person. And if it's not aligned with me now, guess what? You'll probably get the same feedback that I got from you back then, nothing. So, just understanding that everybody's not going to want to work with you. Some people you'll expose their weaknesses and things like that, and they're scared of that. Okay, that's fine. But if we're trying to make an impact, then some of us got to swallow that pride and realize that, we're going to have to get together eventually, especially if we're all trying to, do better and be better for our communities.
Okay. We got two comments here again from Michelle. Unapologetically stern.
I try to be. it's just
And
it just needs to happen. I'm not trying to be mean. I have so much love in my heart. But I'm just not going to stand by and just watch people do things that I know is really hurting our community, but surface level trying to make it seem like that they're helping. If I see a hindrance, it's a hindrance, and I'm going to call it for what it is. And that involves my clients too. If I see that you're trying to make excuses and you're trying to talk about other things that's not related to your growth, I'm going to stop you in your tracks. Hey, we need to circle back. Let's talk about why this happened. Let's talk about why this didn't happen. What's the reflection on this and how can we change that to move forward? Because I'm always down for solution-based conversation. I don't want to just vent without a solution. So I don't do that. And everybody needs space to vent. I get it. But if you're venting about the same stuff 25 times, yeah, that's a problem. We need to do some personal development so we can work on changing it.
this last comment, it's on the screen there. She says, "I love it."
Hmm.
So let's transition over to your work as in life coaching. What makes your coaching style different from traditional coaching models?
Because I don't sugarcoat. I'm not gonna sugarcoat with you. I'm not going to pacify you. I'm not gonna baby you. If you're coming to work with me, then you better know we're gonna work. And I also am going to be very open and telling you I'm not going to do more work than you. I'm not going to chase you. I'm not, and that even comes to new clients, right? I had a couple of mentors a couple years back that was like, oh, you need to hop in every DM, you need to do this, you need to do that. That just was never my style because I am big on I attract who is for me.
Mm.
And probably could have cost me more clients if I would have done that, but it was just not aligned with me. So I will reach out if someone initiates conversation on a post or, something like that. But as far as cold DMs, that's not me. But I am very vocal about not chasing anybody. So if you're somebody that feels like that, you're gonna be chased, and you're somebody that's gonna make 50,000 excuses why you didn't do one specific assignment, then I may not be the person for you. Um, you've got to want to shift in life. You've got to want to change. You've got to acknowledge that you need to change, and then you've got to be ready to take the steps to do so. It's not going to be easy. Social media has made it seem like that things are just, an overnight process, and it's not. It is not easy to recondition your life. It is not easy to stop doing the habits that you've been doing for 20 years. It is a
Mhm.
process, it is a journey, and it is a hard journey. But it's also hard staying the same, staying stressed out, staying unfulfilled, staying unsatisfied. It's just as hard to do that because now you're messing with your quality of life. So you want to pick your heart, and I pick change.
Mm. So, how do you help clients identify the root of their limiting beliefs?
We definitely have to have a conversation. And when they come to me, they're struggling with maybe a specific area. They're struggling with people pleasing. They're struggling with not being able to say no. They're struggling with, certain things that are hindering them. And what I help them with in the beginning is we really sit back and identify why you feel like that you can't say no. So you want to say no, but let's ask the question. Do you want to say no? Do you want to say yes out of obligation, or do you want to say yes because it's something that you truly want to do?
Mm.
And after sitting for a second, yeah, I just feel like I'm obligated, because that's my best friend, or that's my sister, or that's my mom. So I just feel obligated. So we need to work on that, because nobody should feel obligated to do for anybody else. And I don't care who they are, mom, dad, sister, brother. You should not feel obligated. You should do things because you want to do things. So let's sit up here and have a conversation on why you feel like you don't want to do it, because we'll identify what I call energy zappers. Is it an energy zapper? Is it something that you're like, oh my God, every time they even come to me, I cringe, that's a problem. And we need to identify that. You know what I'm saying? So really having the conversation and just really discussing those things. 9 out of 10 times they'll come and be like, you know what, I'm doing it because of obligation. So now we're going to work on coming up with a toolkit for you to be able to say, instead of just answering right away, okay, let me think on it for a second. Someone may want to borrow money. You say yes just because you feel obligated. Now, with the tools that I offer, you're gonna now say, you know what? Let me see. Let me give you a call back in like an hour. I'll let you know. In like an hour. Now, let me say this: you're definitely going to have people that are so used to you just doing. So when you are changing that, oh, no, no, no. What do you mean? What do you mean? You got to wait. What do you mean? You got to wait. You're doing this for you, not them. And if after that hour, or you may say 24 hours, let me call you tomorrow, I'll let you know. If they cannot understand that you are wanting to wait until you give an answer, that is a whole separate conversation that you need to ask, because you need to ask yourself, is that a one-sided friendship? Is that a one-sided relationship? Nobody should be mad because you want to think about something.
Exactly.
So that's just one of the things, that I know that I work with a lot of women on, is being able to say no, or, say yes out of fulfillment and not obligation.
Let's transition over to your authorship and creative work, because this is I think this is like a really big bolstering part of what you're doing with your business. Because I think with you being out there and people actually seeing you and reading your works and so forth, that's got to be a big boost for you. What inspired you to become an author?
Um, my first book, From Havoc to Healing, 30 Days of Reconditioning, is actually my journal that I wrote in 2020.
Mhm.
I didn't realize at the time that I was going to turn it into a book when I wrote it, but I went back and reread it in probably mid to late 2022, after it sat on my computer for 2 years. And I read every day, and I was like, oh my God, like I need to put this out there for others to see, because it really talked about my thoughts, but it also talked about the processes that I was talking about implementing to make the changes in my life. It talked about how I knew that people weren't going to be happy with the changes that I wanted to make in my life. And I felt like that was something that other people needed to read, because I feel like as women, we feel like sometimes we're alone in those thoughts, in those, so I published it February 24th of 2023, actually. So it's literally been 3 years, and it became an Amazon bestseller. I put it on Amazon because I knew I wanted it again to be a global thing, and it's available Kindle, Audible, hardback or paperback. And that was really a moment for me to say, you know what, this is another level of me being able to show people that life, it's never too late to elevate. So I published it with that in mind. I am in the process of putting together a memoir of some sort, which is kind of like me talking about more of my story from a whole life standpoint. Because from having to healing 30 days of reconditioning is literally just those 30 days. But it's time for people to know more about the transformation and why I needed to transform, and talk a little bit more about my past and things like that, because I am the epitome of transformation and resilience. I claim that. And I've got my most recent journal, which I'll call it that. It's called Becoming Her, which is healed, empowered, and ready. And this is a 30-day guided blueprint for purpose, power, and personal transformation. And this is available on my website, but this is literally you going through the title of Becoming Her, which again is healed, empowered, and ready. It has journal prompts daily. You've got weekly checkpoints. But this is for the women that are ready to stop playing small and really step into the women that they're really supposed to be. So this is available on my website. If you're somebody that is ready to step into your power and be unapologetic and really figure out what life is supposed to be for you, really asking yourself the questions of how you want life to be designed, then I definitely recommend grabbing Becoming Her, because it's definitely one of those things that's going to help you really work towards becoming your most confident, unapologetic self.
What themes connect to your writing?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What themes connect to your writing?
Uh, Probably just life experience. Excuse me. I think understanding that my life experience was not meant to stay silent. I think realizing that I'm supposed to tell my story. Excuse me, y'all.
Bless
I'm
you.
supposed to tell my story. Thank you. I'm supposed to tell my story so people know what it's like and know that they're not alone. We hear that from a mental health perspective. You are not alone. We have, resource lines, crisis lines, and things like that. But sometimes we just need to know that we're not alone in our thoughts. We're not alone in our feelings. And especially as Black women, we are supposed to be designed to carry the weight of it all. So I think me writing and me, speaking on platforms and podcasting is just my way of really telling women that you're not alone in this. And that is, it's never too late for you to make the changes in your life, and whatever that looks like for you. It could be you quitting a job that you hated for the past 15 years. It could be, you wanting to step into entrepreneurship. It could be you wanting to say, you know what, I'm tired of this friendship. It's not serving me, and you're ready to walk away. But my life experiences, I think, were supposed to be put out for women to understand that it's never too late to make the changes that you need. You don't have to stay stuck.
Tell us about your podcast.
So I have two. I have Empowering Real Talk, I've had Empowering Real Talk for almost 5 years. And Empowering Real Talk is more of the self-discovery, mindset transformation, personal growth, but it's the raw and uncut conversations that we need to have in order to embrace that. That audience is more of a general based. I have a man and female following on that podcast. And I feel like that it was put out to be able to, again, share those life experiences. So not just from a book perspective, but also from a video perspective and a podcasting perspective. I talk about my story all the time on my shows, whether it's me by myself, whether I have guests, because I love having guests that like to talk about the things that come along with Empowering Real Talk. I have other mindset coaches. I have, doctors, therapists, things like that, that are talking about the things that are really going to help us grow and build. The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, is exactly what it sounds like as well. Um, as a business coach, the conversations I was having with women stuck, not sure, self doubt because they're seeing these women on IG that's living their best life. So the self, you know what I'm saying? And we all know that some of that is cap, but that's a whole nother topic. But like, talking about, I heard a lot of podcasts that talked about how everybody's always making six figures and how they're successful, they're getting these houses, these cars, and I know that that's cap. I am an entrepreneur. I know that these people was renting houses and renting cars and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about the thrills and the spills. So we're going to celebrate our wins, but we're also going to be vulnerable and transparent, and my guests know this as well, and they love coming on to talk about their thrills and spills. They talk about their high moments. They talk about the moments where they gave up and started something completely different. They talk about the moments where they went 5 months without making any money. I think that those are the conversations that women business owners need to hear, because it's a level of encouragement. Again, also letting them know that they are not alone in the entrepreneurial journey. So whatever level they're on, whether they're in the visionary stage with an idea, they're in business but they're stuck, they don't know their next move, or they're scaling and they've been in business for 15-20 years and they're making millions in their business. There's a level of each, and all of them share their thrills and spills. So I want it to be real, raw, and uncut. Both of the podcasts offer that. And I have that on the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel, which is on YouTube, but they're both also available on your favorite streaming platforms as well: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all that good stuff. And you can listen to them through your web browser as well.
And so, getting to this part here, when we chatted, and I told you we do Black History 365, and of course, this month I've been opening with reflections of different people, and tonight's opening reflection was one of the folk that you said inspired and influenced you so
Mhm.
much, which is Sojourner Truth. You also told me that Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were also great influences on your life and career. Can you tell us why is Sojourner Truth one of the most influential figures in your life?
Because I just embody so much of what she did. Um, I feel like that if I knew her personally, we probably would have similar personalities because she just wasn't having it. She wasn't going. And I think that I'm just that person. And I love that. And that's something that I want to continue to embody, because that's what we need. As I said earlier, there's a level of radicalness that needs to happen if we truly want to see change in our communities and our systems. And I think that she was one of the good examples to be able to show that, hey, this is what's got to happen, and I'm finna do whatever I got to do to make that happen. And even from the other two, Malcolm X too, speaking from that, just knowing that peaceful protest is fine, but it's not getting us anywhere. And, in order for us to really embrace that and understand that, we got to shift the game with that. So I think just embodying that from those icons is just something that I really love, and I'll continue to do how, things my way. And I think that she did the same thing. So that's, I really just feel like I embody that.
So, what lessons from Malcolm X got your leadership and advocacy?
He talked a lot about, how the system is designed to brainwash. I think that we don't talk about that enough. We kind of keep those things under the rug, and that's not helping us because it's getting worse. And being vocal about that is something that's just got to happen. So I think that being able to speak on those things, but also speak on the fact that we know that these systems are designed to keep us a certain way. They're designed to make us feel and act a certain way and make us talk a certain way. When it comes to the government, Democrat, Republican, like, to me, they're all the same. You know what I'm saying? And although I know that there are things that are different from the perspective, if you really dig deep, 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 and some people won't, and that's fine. You don't want to be informed. You know, people can call me woke and say whatever, but at the end of the day, if we if there was really a side that was truly with us, we would be so further. And I'm not saying that we are not further. Like, we definitely have the tools, we have the resources, but we have to build together. We have to continue to build more. We can't have 100 people trying to change a nation for us. There has to be a lot of us to make that happen. And I think that was kind of the message that Malcolm was trying to put out there. You know, Martin too, but if I identify with one more than the other from that perspective, it probably would be Malcolm.
So, how does Dr. King's philosophy of purpose and service show up in your work?
Uh, I think just speaking, being that voice, and I think a lot of times people forget like what happened, like with the boycotts. Like, we don't realize that those boycotts lasted for months. I'm never against what people are trying to do now, like don't shop for one day and stuff like that. But if we're really going to make a difference, we got to shut some things down for weeks, for months, even years, for things to make a difference. One day of us not shopping, I applaud it. I participate, but it's not going to make the real difference that we need to make. And, I think from all of their perspective, I think they understood that, we're going to have to shut some things down and it's going to have to stay shut down. But again, because we've been programmed and these things are fed to us, social media and phones and electronics and, the dopamine fix that we get from doom scrolling all day, it's really diminishing us to be able to take the action that we need to take. So sometimes I feel like that we could just do away with them. Sometimes just give me a regular old flip phone and I'll be fine. But
And the final question for you: how do these three icons collectively shape your mission and your legacy?
um I think for me, just continuing to educate myself, because I'll continue to learn things about what they stood for, how they operated. But if there are things that are aligned with me, just continuing to move my way and understanding that I, again, don't have to be the leader in everything, but I'm also going to make an impact in everything. So don't got to be the leader in everything, but I'm going to make an impact in everything that I do. And I think that embodying those three, is a huge part of that, because I think that whatever they did, they were trying to make an impact, and they did make an impact. I'll take the try out. They did make an impact. So I think that's just kind of how I want to do things and leave a legacy of knowing I made an impact in my unapologetic approach to how I'm trying to handle things.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience, as well as how to connect with you via your social media, your websites, how they get your books, all of that good information?
I will say this, people. um, be okay with being you. I think so much has happened to where we're trying to be other people. We're trying to live other people's lives. We're trying to mimic society in the wrong ways. And I want you to really sit down and ask yourself the question, am I living a life fulfilled? If I were to be on my deathbed tomorrow, can I say that I lived a life fulfilled? And if you can't answer yes to that, then you need to start doing the work so that you can. Whether that involves personal development, whether that involves going back to school, going to get a trade, that involves investments, whatever that looks like for you, be okay with making it happen, and also be okay with understanding that everybody is not going to understand your processes. Stop trying to convince everybody to understand. They're not supposed to. Live your life your way, unapologetically, and do whatever it is that you got to do to make that happen. Everybody's not going to be on board, people, but you are ready to recondition to honor your values, your systems, your beliefs, and you better be unapologetic in doing so. Because I don't want you to leave here and say that I did not live a life fulfilled. I'm not going to be that person. When I leave this earth, I will definitely be able to say that I lived a life fulfilled. And I want everybody that's watching this and everybody that will watch it to be able to do the same. You can learn more about me at my website, which is upgradedmindsets.life. You can follow me on all socials at Coach K Transforms. My books are available on my website. From Havoc to Healing is on there, and Becoming Her. If you're interested in learning more about my services, again, everything is listed on the website. And then if you want to listen to the podcast, you can follow me on YouTube at Upgraded Mindsets Media. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the raw and uncut conversations I have over there. And I just want you guys to live a life fulfilled. Be unapologetic in who you want to be and follow your desire, follow your dreams. If you don't know what your dreams are, you owe it to yourself to figure it out, and you owe it to yourself to make things happen.
Well, before I close, I want to first tell you that I appreciate you so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
sharing not just your story, your journey, but the positive impact that you're making in the community
Thank
and
you.
with the inroads of the people that you're specifying and how you're trying to make things happen. I appreciate that 5,000%. And I
Thank you
hope
very
that we
much.
can have you back on the show.
I'd
For
be
those
I'd love to. Thank you.
for those of you that are watching on all of our channels, including our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would appreciate if you could support us by going and subscribing to the channel and please enabling all notifications where you get the opportunity to catch all the shows live when we go live. In closing, I have this monologue that is very specific for you, Keisha, and for our audience to make sure you please understand this. Keisha, your voice is a reminder that transformation is not a moment, it is a lifestyle.
Mm.
Your work challenges us to confront our truth, elevate our mindset, and step boldly into life we were meant to live. You stand in the lineage of Sojourner Truth, Malcolm X, and Dr. King, leaders who demanded change, embodied courage, and spoke life into their communities. And tonight, you carried that torch with power and grace. Thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for reminding us that rewriting your story is not just possible, it is necessary.
Yes.
This has been American Black and White. Good night, family. And please come back and watch us again tomorrow where we have a great Final Word Friday show for you. Thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Keisha, and I'll definitely be reaching out to you.
Thank you so